My name is Landon Pierce, and today I will be discussing the reasons why banning guns in the United States is a poor decision and how it can negatively affect the community. Now, imagine a world where there is no way to protect yourself or your loved ones in an emergency with a crazed individual. Pretend you're in a store and an assailant comes in holding a gun, but you and everyone around you has nothing to protect yourselves with. This scene would most likely end in a tragic disaster. Now that you know what I'll be discussing, let's jump into the issues with this horrible idea of banning guns. Many people are in favor. However, if all guns were banned, the world really would not be a safer place. An article from the Office of Justice Program's website, Gun Ownership Provides Effective Self-Defense, claims many more criminals are killed or wounded each year by armed citizens than by the police. This proves that owning a gun is possibly the most effective way to protect oneself from others and from crime. The first problem with banning guns is, if guns are banned, Americans would lose their Second Amendment right. According to the U.S. Constitution, written by the Founding Fathers in 1787 and later operational in 1789, the Second Amendment states, "A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." This clearly states that people are given the right to bear arms. If the government takes away those rights, who's to say that they can't take away others? Along with that, they are also violating one of the most important documents and sets of rules in history. The second problem with banning guns is that it will likely be ineffective because criminals will not follow the gun regulations. An article, Why Gun Control Doesn't Work, published by the NRA, clearly states how gun control would only affect law-abiding citizens. Criminals, by definition, do not obey the law. Gun control laws only affect law-abiding people who go through legal avenues to obtain firearms. Criminals overwhelmingly obtain their firearms through illegal actions and will never be deterred by state and federal laws. Now, a third problem with banning guns is that Americans would lose their ability to protect themselves and their loved ones effectively in a hostile situation. According to that same NRA article that I mentioned a minute ago, studies have shown that homicide rates tend to rise when law-abiding citizens are unable to own and carry firearms for self-defense. By banning guns, Americans would have to use other weapons, and to go to the extreme, that can mean like using a cannon to protect themselves or some other crazy weapon. This would create more chaos and most likely be more damaging than just having the right to carry a gun. So as I'm sure you can see, there are many problems revolving around banning guns in the United States. So let's look at some potential ways to solve these problems. First off, the Second Amendment right needs to be kept because once the amendment is changed, who's to say the government cannot take it away or take other freedoms away? In Supreme Court case McDonald v. Chicago on June 28, 2010, the Supreme Court ruled that the Second Amendment was incorporated by the due process section of the 14th Amendment, and individuals were therefore granted a constitutional right to keep firearms in their homes for self-protection. This right, the court stated, was greater than the state's power to restrict it. Now, another easy solution to enforce criminals to follow the law is to enforce the punishments more harshly. In a project established in Richmond, Virginia in 1997, a project called Project Exile, which was based on the principle that if a police officer caught a criminal with a gun, then the criminal would forfeit his or her right to remain in the community and would face immediate federal prosecution and stiff mandatory federal prison sentences. This program, published to the U.S. Attorney's Office under Eastern District, Virginia, Project Exile, proved to be wildly effective, with the number of homicides committed in Richmond being down 36% and the number of firearm homicides being down 41% in just a few months. A final solution can be enforcing stricter gun regulations. By ensuring there are restrictions that are constitutional and that are more heavily enforced, people who should not be allowed to own guns will not be able to. According to an article on Gun Safety Training Pro titled United States Firearm Purchase Requirements, there are already restrictions for purchasing a gun in the U.S. in place against those who are under the age of 18 or 21, depending on the type of gun, illegal immigrants, mentally ill, felons, addicts, and many others. Many get around these restrictions by going through illegal sites or black market. By enforcing the regulation more severely, those who are unable to own a gun because they are unstable and potentially cause danger to others would not be able to. However, it would also allow those who meet the required criteria to safely own a gun. Now that you have heard the problems and my proposed solutions, let's look at how different the world would be if guns were and were not banned. So, to start, if guns were not banned, the U.S. would be a safer place because those who have not passed a background check or are ineligible would not be able to own guns. Citizens would also be more comfortable because they have a way to protect themselves in a hostile situation. And another reason would be citizens will not fear the government because they know that they don't have the right to take constitutional rights away as they please. Now let's look about what would happen if guns were banned. The U.S. would grow in crime rates since there would be less people to stop the criminals. Citizens would fear the government because they feel like the government can take away rights as they please. The government would have too much power over citizens because of that. And there would also be no way to practically protect yourself. So now that we know what could happen if we did or did not ban guns, let's see how we can ensure guns aren't banned. I urge you to consider both of the options of how the U.S. would look with the banning of guns, and I hope you realize how detrimental it could be. So in order to fight banning guns, you can vote against banning guns in the U.S., educate and spread awareness to those around you, and make it known that a constitutional right would be taken away. Criminals will run loose, and that personal protection will no longer be available. Personally, I hope the U.S. will continue allowing guns due to the pros outweighing the cons. Thank you.